Hey Reddit, I, 35M, need your perspective on a situation that's torn my family apart. I've been sitting here for hours trying to figure out if I crossed a line, but I keep coming back to the same conclusion. Let me start from the beginning. My brother Mark, 38M, and I grew up incredibly close. Our parents worked long hours, so we basically raised each other. We shared everything, clothes, games, secrets about our first crushes, you name it. When I broke my arm trying to jump off the garage roof at 12, Mark carried me 6 blocks to the emergency room because we were too scared to call our parents. That's the kind of bond we had. As adults, we stayed close. When I started house hunting 5 years ago, Mark convinced me to buy in his neighborhood. He even helped with the down payment, which I paid back last year. We had weekly family dinners, went on camping trips together, and never missed celebrating each other's birthdays. Our wives joked that we were more married to each other than to them. I met my wife Sarah, 33F, 7 years ago at the Daily Grind, this tiny coffee shop where she worked while finishing her psychology degree. She had this habit of drawing little cartoons on my coffee cups, and I kept coming back hoping to make her smile. Mark was my wingman through the whole thing. He helped me plan elaborate date ideas and even practiced my proposal speech with me. Sarah and Mark's wife Rachel, 37F, clicked instantly. They both loved true crime podcasts and spent hours theorizing about cold cases. Rachel practically lived at our house during Sarah's pregnancy scare last year, bringing her weird herbal teas and distracting her with stories from her job as a high school counselor. Their daughter Emma, 22F, was the sweetest kid growing up. She called me Uncle Teddy because I once dressed up as a bear for her 6th birthday party and the name stuck. I watched her grow from a shy kindergartner into this amazing young woman who volunteers at animal shelters and teaches art to elderly people. Everything was perfect until about 6 months ago. That's when I first noticed Sarah acting weird whenever Rachel came over. She'd suddenly remember urgent errands or take super long bathroom breaks. When I asked if everything was okay between them, Sarah would just say she was tired from work. Then Rachel started doing the same thing. She'd decline our usual Friday night dinners or leave early, always with some excuse about grading papers or having early meetings. Mark didn't seem to notice. He was busy planning Emma's wedding to her college sweetheart James. The truth came out on a random Tuesday. I came home early because a client canceled, and found Sarah sobbing in our bedroom. She could barely get the words out at first. Turns out she'd borrowed Rachel's phone to call her doctor since hers was dead, and a message from Mark popped up. Not just any message, an explicit one about their lunch break hookup. Sarah showed me the screenshots she'd taken. There were hundreds of messages going back at least 8 months. They'd been meeting at some motel off the highway during their lunch breaks. Mark had been lying about business trips to spend weekends with Rachel. They had inside jokes about fooling their spouses and talked about running away together once Emma's wedding was over. I felt like I was going to throw up. This was my brother, the guy who gave this big speech at my wedding about loyalty and family values. The same brother who organized a surprise anniversary party for Rachel just 3 months ago, standing there talking about their perfect marriage while secretly planning to leave her. I drove straight to Mark's office. His secretary tried to stop me, saying he was in a meeting, but I barged in anyway. He was actually on his phone, probably texting Rachel. When I showed him the screenshots, his face went white. He started rambling about how it wasn't what it looked like, then switched to begging me not to tell Rachel when he realized I had proof. Mark swore it was just a fling that got out of hand. He said he'd end things with Rachel immediately, that he just needed time to figure out how to handle it without hurting anyone. I wanted to punch him. Like he hadn't already hurt everyone? But I gave him 2 weeks to come clean to Rachel. I thought he'd do the right thing. 2 weeks turned into 3, then 4. The wedding was getting closer, and Mark was still playing happy families while sneaking around with Rachel. I wrestled with what to do. Emma was so excited about her wedding. She'd been planning it since she was a kid, and Mark was supposed to walk her down the aisle. The wedding day started beautifully. Emma looked amazing in her dress, and seeing her so happy made me question my plan to expose everything. But then Mark got up to give his speech. He talked about how marriage meant always being honest with each other, about the importance of loyalty and trust. He even shed a few tears talking about his perfect marriage to Rachel. I couldn't take it anymore. The hypocrisy was too much. After he finished, I stood up and asked to say a few words. Rachel was beaming, probably thinking I was going to share some cute story about Mark as a dad. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started reading their messages out loud. The silence in the room was deafening. Rachel's face crumpled as she realized what she was hearing. Emma ran out crying, with James running after her. Mark tried to play it off as a joke at first, then lunged at me when I kept reading. It took 3 of our cousins to hold him back. Rachel just sat there, staring at nothing while everyone around her exploded into chaos. Sarah's friend tried to deny everything, claiming I was making it up because I was jealous of Mark's success. But Rachel had already seen the truth in Mark's face. The wedding reception ended right there. Half the guests left immediately, while the other half stuck around arguing about whether I was right to expose everything. Emma hasn't spoken to either of her parents since then. Rachel packed a bag and went to stay with her sister. Mark's been calling me non-stop, leaving increasingly threatening voicemails about how I've ruined his life. So Reddit, I need to know, Ida for choosing that moment to expose the affair? Should I have waited until after Emma's wedding? Everyone keeps saying there was a better way to handle it, but watching Mark stand there lying about marriage and loyalty, I just couldn't stay quiet anymore. Update 1: I didn't expect to be updating this so soon, but things have spiraled way beyond what I imagined. The day after Emma's wedding, Mark showed up at my house at 6 a.m., pounding on the door and screaming my name. I was already awake, who could sleep after everything that happened? Sarah called the police while I tried talking to him through the door. He was completely unhinged, yelling about how I'd destroyed his family and ruined Emma's special day. The police came and warned him about trespassing, but that was just the beginning. After that incident, he started sending threatening messages. Not just to me, but to Sarah too. He blamed her for taking the screenshots, saying she should have minded her own business. That's when I decided to install security cameras around our house. Turns out that was a smart move. 3 days after the wedding incident, Mark showed up again. This time, he was calmer, which honestly made him scarier. The cameras caught everything. He walked up to our front door, looked straight into the camera, and said he was going to make me pay for humiliating him. He talked about how he knew my routine, where I got coffee, which gym I used. The implications were clear. I sent the footage to Rachel's lawyer immediately. She'd already filed for divorce and was seeking a restraining order. The video of Mark threatening me helped her case significantly. The lawyer said Mark's behavior showed a pattern of intimidation that strengthened Rachel's position. But here's where things get even messier. Rachel called me yesterday, her voice shaking. She'd been going through their shared computer, trying to gather financial documents for the divorce. That's when she found a hidden email account. Mark hadn't just been cheating with Sarah's friend, he'd been having affairs with multiple women for years. The emails went back at least 5 years. There were messages to a woman from his gym, another from his office, and even one of Emma's former teachers. Each conversation followed the same pattern. He'd complain about his unhappy marriage, promise to leave Rachel, then ghost them when they got too demanding. Rachel forwarded everything to her lawyer. She was devastated but said she felt oddly relieved. She'd sometimes suspected something was off but always pushed those thoughts away. Mark was so good at playing the devoted husband that she'd convinced herself she was being paranoid. Emma finally broke her silence and called me. She'd been staying with her new husband's family, trying to process everything. She told me something that made my blood boil. Apparently, she'd been having doubts about getting married. Not because of James, he's a great guy. But she'd seen some things that made her question whether she could trust anyone enough for marriage. Mark had spent hours convincing her she was being paranoid. He used his own marriage as an example, telling her about how trust and communication were the foundations of his relationship with Rachel. Emma said she almost called off the wedding 3 times, but Mark's advice convinced her to go through with it. Then Sarah's friend showed up at our house. She was crying, mascara running down her face, begging Sarah to forgive her. She claimed Mark had manipulated her, said he was trapped in a loveless marriage and needed her support. She even tried to paint herself as a victim, saying Mark had promised to leave Rachel dozens of times. Sarah didn't buy it. She reminded her friend that she'd been Rachel's friend first, that she'd sat through countless girls' nights where Rachel gushed about how happy she was with Mark. Sarah told her to leave and never contact us again. As she was leaving, she turned and said we'd regret taking Rachel's side. I'm not sure what she meant by that, but we've documented everything just in case. The family is completely divided over what happened. Our parents are furious with me. They keep saying I should have handled it privately, that exposing Mark at Emma's wedding was cruel and unnecessary. They think I was jealous of Mark's success and wanted to humiliate him. But our extended family sees it differently. Our aunts and uncles watched Rachel treat Mark like royalty for 25 years. She supported him through law school, worked extra jobs so he could take unpaid internships, and never complained when he worked late or went on business trips. Now they know those sacrifices meant nothing to him. The final blow came when Mark's affairs with 2 coworkers came to light. His law firm has a strict policy against office relationships after a previous scandal. When the managing partners found out about Mark's behavior, they asked for his resignation. He's been staying with our parents, who somehow blame me for his job loss too. They keep saying I could have waited until after the wedding to expose him. That I ruined Emma's special day out of spite. But they weren't there, watching him stand up and talk about marriage while betraying his wife. They didn't see Rachel's face as she realized her entire marriage was a lie. Mark lost his job, his family, and his reputation. Our parents say I destroyed his life, but I think he did that himself. He had multiple chances to come clean, to end things honorably. Instead, he chose to keep lying until someone forced the truth into the open. I don't regret what I did, but I do regret that Emma had to find out that way. She deserved better than having her wedding day turn into a public exposure of her father's infidelity. But maybe it's better than spending years believing in a lie, like Rachel did. Update 2. Just when I thought our family situation couldn't get more complicated, we uncovered something that changed everything. Rachel was organizing documents for her divorce when she discovered years of suspicious bank transfers to an account she didn't recognize. At first, she thought it might be related to Mark's affairs, maybe he'd been buying gifts or funding trips. But the amounts were much larger than that, and they went back over a decade. She hired a forensic accountant, using money from her teacher's pension that Mark didn't know about. The accountant's findings were shocking. Mark had been systematically moving money from their joint accounts into a secret savings account for over 10 years. He'd timed the transfers carefully, always keeping them small enough not to raise red flags. By the time Rachel discovered it, he'd accumulated nearly $200,000. But that wasn't even the worst part. Rachel's parents had left her a substantial inheritance when they passed away 5 years ago. Most of it was specifically designated for Emma's education. They'd been educators themselves and wanted to ensure their granddaughter could attend any college she chose without worrying about debt. Mark convinced Rachel to let him manage the inheritance, claiming his experience as a lawyer made him better equipped to handle investments. He showed her fake statements every month, claiming he was growing the money through smart investments. In reality, he'd been stealing from it piece by piece. Emma was devastated when she found out. She and James had taken out significant loans to cover their wedding because Mark claimed the college fund had been depleted due to market crashes and poor investment returns. She'd worked 2 jobs during college to cover expenses, believing they were struggling financially. The truth came out during a family dinner at our parents' house. Mark wasn't there, he's still not welcome at family gatherings. Emma broke down crying when Rachel explained what the forensic accountant had found. Our parents, who'd been defending Mark until then, finally fell silent. Turns out they'd co-signed some of Emma's student loans, believing Mark's story about the depleted college fund. Now they're potentially on the hook for those payments, and their retirement savings can't cover it. Dad tried calling Mark to demand an explanation, but he stopped answering their calls too. Rachel's lawyer is pursuing criminal charges for financial fraud. The evidence is clear. Mark didn't just steal from his wife, he stole from his daughter's future. The forensic accountant found emails where Mark discussed his exit strategy with a financial advisor, planning how to hide money for years before making his escape. Emma went through their old family photos last week, crying as she looked at pictures from vacations and celebrations. She said she kept thinking about how her dad was planning to abandon them even in those happy moments. How he smiled for the camera while secretly stealing her college money. Our extended family has completely turned against Mark now. Even our cousin, who's known for staying neutral in family disputes, said he hopes Mark faces jail time. The sense of betrayal isn't just about the affairs anymore, it's about the calculated way he deceived everyone for years. I found out yesterday that Mark's been badmouthing me to mutual friends, claiming I exposed his affair because I was jealous of his success. But now those same friends are calling to apologize, saying they understand why I couldn't stay quiet. The truth about the stolen money changed everything. Rachel's doing better, focusing on rebuilding her life. She's selling their house, too many memories, and looking for a fresh start. Emma and James are living in a small apartment, both working extra hours to cover their loans. They've refused any help from the family, saying they need to do this themselves. The whole situation still feels surreal. I keep thinking about all those family dinners where Mark lectured us about financial responsibility and hard work. How he criticized me for taking risks with my small business while he was secretly stealing from his own daughter. Our parents finally stopped defending him, but they're still processing their own guilt. Mom keeps saying she should have noticed something was wrong. Dad's going through old conversations, trying to spot the signs he missed. But Mark was always good at hiding things, that's how he got away with it for so long. Update 3. This is my final update on the family situation. After everything that happened with Mark, I made the difficult decision to go completely no contact. Not just with him, but with anyone who still tries to defend his actions or make excuses for him. He's shown absolutely no remorse for what he did. The last message I got from him was a rambling email blaming me for destroying his life. He claimed that if I had just kept quiet, everyone would have been happier. No mention of stealing from Emma's college fund or betraying Rachel's trust. In his mind, I'm the villain for exposing his lies. Rachel's divorce was finalized last week. The judge was particularly harsh after seeing the evidence of financial fraud. Mark tried to claim he had a gambling addiction to explain the missing money, but the forensic accountant's report showed he'd been methodically planning his escape for years. She got everything, the house, both cars, and a substantial settlement after the financial deception came to light. Mark's law license is currently under review by the State Bar Association. Turns out lying to your clients about their trust accounts is a big deal. Who knew? Rachel is selling the house. Too many painful memories, she says. She found an apartment closer to Emma's place and plans to move there next month. She's also started volunteering at a domestic violence shelter, helping other women rebuild their lives after leaving deceptive partners. Emma and James are doing better. They're focused on building their life together, and she's started therapy to work through her trust issues. Last week, she told me that while she wishes the truth had come out differently, she's glad she knows who her father really is. It helps her understand why she always felt something was off in their family dynamic. Our parents are still struggling to accept everything. Mom tries to update me about Mark sometimes, how he's living in a small apartment, looking for work, trying to make amends. But when I ask if he's paid back any of the money he stole or apologized to Emma, she changes the subject. Sarah ended her friendship with Rachel. Not because she blames her for anything, but because there are too many painful memories attached. They tried meeting for coffee last month, but spent the whole time crying about how Mark had manipulated everyone. Mark's former friend from the law firm reached out recently. Apparently, Mark's been telling people that I fabricated everything because I was jealous of his success. When I showed him the forensic accountant's report, he was shocked. He's been warning other law firms in the area about Mark's behavior. As for me, I've lost a brother but gained clarity. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you relationships, but I sleep better knowing I didn't help hide his betrayal. Emma hugged me last week and thanked me for being the only adult who didn't lie to her. That meant more than any relationship with Mark. Our family gatherings are smaller now, but more genuine. No more pretending everything's perfect when it isn't. No more overlooking red flags to keep the peace. It's hard, but it's real. They say the truth sets you free, but they don't mention how much it hurts first. Still, watching Emma and Rachel rebuild their lives without Mark's lies hanging over them makes it worth it. Sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones. I don't plan to post any more updates. Our family is moving forward, focusing on healing rather than dwelling on Mark's betrayal. Thank you to everyone who supported us through this journey.